Hello everybody, we're going to do an audio test review for chapters 16 through 20. So when you're looking at classification, how you classify organisms is going to be kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, species. And then of course the study of how we classify things is taxonomy. So whenever we looked at all the kingdoms, we're on chapter 16 through 20 looking at invertebrates and vertebrates. So we discussed which two kingdoms have organs and organ systems. And as I go through this, I'll ask you a question and then I'll pause. So the answer to that's going to be plants and animals. We talked about fungus. We talked about, and this is just going to be random, it's not going to go in any particular order. The most common fungus is what? Or are what? And that's going to be mushrooms. The most diverse kingdom is considered to be what? That's going to be protists. And then if we talk about mushrooms, which is the common fungus, what type of reproductive strategies do they have? So underneath the fungus, the mushroom that we're discussing, it has gills, and those gills have spores. And those spores are made from structures called basidia. And then the fungus also has roots. So a mushroom has roots called hyphae, and those hyphae spread to form mycelium. So a mat of hyphae are mycelium, and all of those are reproductive strategies for mushrooms. So hyphae, mycelium, spores, basidia, and the spores and the basidia are held within the gills. When we're talking about mollusks, you can have gastropods, bivalves, and univalves. Clams, of course, are going to be bivalves. And then when we talk about fish, you have jawless fish, bony fish, and cartilaginous fish. So you have agnathans, which are jawless fish. And you have chondriachthyes, which are cartilaginous fish. They're mostly made of cartilage. They still have bones, though, because they're still vertebrates. And then you have osteichthyes, which are made up mostly of bone. And those are like trout, salmon, rainbow trout, brook trout, creek chubs. Echinoderms include which of the following? Oysters, starfish, brittle stars, sea cucumbers, or all of them except oysters? The answer, of course, is going to be all but oysters, because oysters are not echinoderms. Insects, arachnids, and crustaceans are all what? As far as classification. Are they platyhelminthes, annelida, or arthropoda? And the answer is going to be arthropoda. Spiders have what type of circulation? Open or closed? That's going to be open because they don't have vessels. So their blood's just sloshing around in there around their organs. Their organs are bathed in blood. Euglena are considered to be plant-like, animal-like, fungus-like, protist, or both animal and plant-like protist. And that's going to be both animal and plant-like. Animal-like protists move with cilia, pseudopods, flagella, or all of the above. That's going to be all of the above. Paramecium, which look oblong and have cilia all around their body. Those paramecium, as well as other types of protists, use what structure to pump out excess water? Is that going to be a vacuole, cilia, contractile vacuole, or eye spot? Contractile vacuole. That's going to keep excess water from coming into the protist or the paramecium and then causing them to explode. Plasmodial slime mold look like vomit on your mulch and feed on dead decomposing matter. What type protist would that be? Animal, plant-like, or fungus-like? It's going to feed on dead decomposing matter, so fungus-like. All protists that move with false feet or pseudopods are in what class? Zooflagellates, coleopterans, or sarcodines? And the answer is going to be sarcodines, because coleopterans are going to move with cilia and zooflagellates are going to move with flagella. If you drink creek water, one risk is that you could get which of the following? Malaria, hanta, amoebic dysentery, or there's no risk. Your answer for that would be amoebic dysentery. Amoebic dysentery, sorry. Hanta is from mouse droppings. Malaria is from mosquito bites. Bacteria that are able to withstand extreme habitats are called what? Extremophiles, eubacteria, archaeobacteria, or hashtag extremophilo. It's going to be extremophiles and archaeobacteria. Bacteria can reproduce sexually by attaching what structures and exchanging DNA. We talked about this in class, and if you have bacteria that attach their pili, then they can exchange DNA and reproduce by a process known as conjugation, and that's sexual reproduction. Bacteria have DNA not enclosed in a nucleus. Instead, they are in a ring, or the DNA is in a ring. Is that ring structure that holds the DNA in a bacteria called pellicle, plasmid, a drawer, or a vector? And the answer is going to be plasmid. All bacteria have flagella. Yes or no? And the answer is going to be no. Some are spores. Some do not have flagella. Some have flagella, which allow them to move around. Some just have to be transported via you touching a desk and then touching your eye. Facultative anaerobes are able to grow in the presence or absence of what? Carbon, methane, ammonia, or oxygen? And the answer is oxygen. Facultative anaerobes can live with oxygen or they can live without it. It doesn't really matter, which means they're very well adapted, better than aerobes and anaerobes. Some plants have bacteria on the roots that can help them to convert nitrogen to nitrates, which the plant can then use for metabolism and growth. One type of mutualistic bacteria is which of the following? Influenza, chickenpox, herpes zoster, or rhizobium? The answer is rhizobium. Influenza is a virus. Chickenpox and herpes zoster are the same thing because herpes zoster causes chickenpox. So the answer is rhizobium. Clostridium tetani causes which of the following? Food poisoning, tetanus, botulism, or flu? And the answer is tetanus. Toxic shock syndrome can be caused by which of the following? Eating undercooked meat, wearing tampons too long, exposure to cat feces, this is especially in pregnant women, or all of the above. And the answer is all of the above. The type of bacteria that has long chains that are spiral shaped. If you have long chains of bacteria, those are called strepto. And if you have spiral shape, it's called spirillum or spirilla. So the answer is going to be streptospirilla. All of these are diseases that are caused by bacteria except which of the following? Tetanus, Lyme disease, tuberculosis, or influenza. The only one that's not a bacteria is influenza. Botulism is commonly known as tetanus, tuberculosis, influenza, or food poisoning. And that would be food poisoning. You need to know that Fleming discovered penicillin. You need to know how sponges are classified. They're porifera. How would jellyfish, hydra, sea anemone, and coral be classified? That's going to be Cnidaria. Tapeworms, of course, are flat, so they're going to be Platyhelminthes. Segmented worms like earthworms and leeches are classified as Annelida. Snails, octopus, clams are all mollusk. Horseshoe crabs, spiders, scorpions, and ticks and mites are all in what subphylum? And that's going to be Chelocerata. Chelicerata if you want to know how to spell that. There are approximately 800 species of sponge. In sponges, they have specialized cells with flagella that help pull in food and water, and those are called choanocytes. Sponges also have skeletal-like structures, even though they're invertebrates and don't have a skeleton. They have something that helps provide them structure and support, which are called spicules. They look like skewer sticks or chopsticks. Sponges and many other critters have both male and female reproductive structures. What is that called? Those are hermaphrodites. Tapeworms are divided into sections, and each section can hold 100,000 eggs each. That's approximate. And each of those sections is called a proglottid. Roundworms are considered to be nematodes. Rotifers are these transparent critters that have a crown of cilia at the head. The body is made of chitin, and some species have only females, and those are rotifers. Usually not a lot of information in our textbooks about rotifers. Mollusk and jellyfish can move with a system that is similar to what? Water vascular, filter feeding, spinning with two flagellas, or jet propulsion. And that's jet propulsion. Earthworms have a closed circulatory system. Leeches inject wood into you to feed off your blood. That's an anticoagulant. Keeps your blood from clotting. Hirudin is one of them. Arthropods have an exoskeleton made of chitin. Spiders have spinnerets to spin their webs. You need to know spinnerets help them spin their web. Centipedes are classified as Chilopoda. Millipedes are Diplopoda. When organisms such as crabs and lobsters shed their shell, or a bird loses a feather on each side, or a snake loses its skin, this is all referred to as molting. Starfish have radial symmetry in their adult life. Vertebrates have an endoskeleton versus a crab that has an exoskeleton. Do all vertebrates have a vertebrae? The answer is yes. Fish that are chondriichthyes include skates and rays, and sharks. They're all made of a lot of cartilage. Bony fish we already discussed. Those are like bass, trout, salmon, bluegill, trout, red eye. Most of the bony fish are considered to be ray-finned fish. So tuna, bass, perch, trout are all ray-finned fish. In fish, you have something we talked about in class called a swim bladder, which is most closely related to a contractile vacuole in protist, which helps with water pressure issues. Frogs are vertebrates, but they have how many chambers in their heart? 2, 3, or 4? It's one less than us, so it's 3. Who has a larger brain, fish or frogs? It's going to be fish. Amphibian eggs are protected by jelly. Amphibians lay their eggs in water. Reptiles have an amniotic egg, which allows them to be adapted to land. Birds are warm or cold-blooded. They're warm-blooded, which means they're called endothermic, versus exothermic, which is cold-blooded. Birds are classified how? They're aves. Birds are thought to have evolved from dinosaurs. Monotremes have a pouch and lay eggs, and the example is a duck-billed platypus and an echidna. A marsupial includes kangaroos, opossums, koalas. Marsupials have a pouch. Don't lay eggs though. That would be the monotremes that lay eggs, but they're all considered to be mammals, so marsupials and monotremes are still mammals. All mammals have a placenta or afterbirth? Yes or no? That is no. Whales are mammals. Newts, salamanders, and frogs are all classified how? That's amphibians. Eutheria is a subclass. Those are the mammals that have placenta. Eutheria, Eutheria. Bats are in the order Chiroptera. So pretend you got a bat that has to go to the chiropractor to get adjusted. So Chiroptera, a bat going to the chiropractor. Mice are rodents, so therefore they're in the order Rodentia. Rodentia. Monkeys, apes, and humans are all primates. Dogs are in the order carnivora. The cell wall of a bacteria may be surrounded by an organized capsule called a glycocalyx. A structure in bacteria that holds DNA and RNA is called the plasmid. Saprophytic bacteria are called detrivores. They're going to feed on dead decomposing matter. A gram-positive stain will turn what color? That's purple. Gram-negative would be pink. There's a scientist that isolated penicillin and received the Nobel Prize with Alexander Fleming, and his name is Flory, F-L-O-R-Y. Chytrids are mainly an aquatic fungi. C-H-Y-T-R-I-D-S is chytrids. What is thought to be the most primitive fungi? That's also those chytrids. And chytrids produce mobile zoospores, which are animal-like spores that can move. Sac fungi are called yeast is unicellular. The rest of the fungus are mostly multicellular. Club fungi produce a fruiting body called a basidiocarp. Fungi and crustaceans have cell walls made of chitin. It's the same thing that crabs and lobsters have. It's a chitin on their hard shell. Fungi digest their food outside their bodies with enzymes called hydrolytic enzymes, so they experience extracellular digestion. So if you've got a mushroom on a log, it's going to take dead decomposing log and take big chunks of it, turn it into little chunks, and break it down with enzymes, and then suck it up into its body through the hyphae and the mycelium. Puffballs are an example of fungi. Mycorrhizae is a mutualistic fungi. Mycorrhizae or mycorrhiza. M-Y-C-O-R-R-H-I-Z-A-E. What are the special reproductive structures that sponges can drop that can remain dormant for many years? Those are going to be gemmules. G-E-M-M-U-L-E-S. One of my favorite things to talk about. So if the water quality is poor, the sponges will drop gemmules, and those can lay in the water for many, many years. And then when the water is favorable, they can reproduce into a baby sponge. Flagellated cells in sponges that aid in food and water getting pushed into the sponge are called choanocytes. We already mentioned that once. A jellyfish has a body plan that is going to be medusa because it's bell-shaped and has a mouth on the bottom. And a hydra is going to be polyp because it has a tube-shaped body and the mouth is on the top. What is the cavity of a cnidaria called? Medusa cavity, osculum, or gastrovascular? It's going to be gastrovascular. Cnidarians have stinging cells called cnidocytes and nematocysts. Those are within the tentacles and allow the cnidarians to sting. Worms have what type symmetry? Worms have what type symmetry? Same as us, bilateral. A trichinella is a roundworm that causes the disease trichinosis. Roundworms, of course, are nematodes. A four-limbed or four-footed animal is going to be a tetrapod. Mammal hairs, like your hair, has a protein. I know the same protein that's also in your skin, and it's known as keratin. Keratin, K-E-R-A-T-I-N. And the last review item: do duck-billed platypus have mammary glands? And the answer is no. They have pores on their skin that the milk is released from. Good luck in your studying. See you in class next week for the test.